Welcome to another episode of Life Lessons with Dr. Bob, where you'll hear highly accomplished and fascinating guests talk about the challenges they've overcome and the winning mindsets that have led them to great success. And now your host, Dr. Bob.
We're back with Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. And again, we're turning the tables on Dr. Bob today. He's had some wonderful interviews of other people to take out their life lessons. But I said to myself, watching these, what about Dr. Bob? Who's he? You know, we're talking about that. He has the best life lessons, and we've been talking about them. And Dr. Bob, welcome back to your show. Here we go again. Now, I wanted to get back to Cognex because what a magnificent success story. I mean, what was the value of this company today?
I think $14 billion.
$14 billion. Okay. At one time, it was nothing. It was your $86,000 savings.
$86,000.
And some idea you had in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And again, people don't know. How is it? There's an alchemy here. There's some kind of chemistry here. How is it that someone decides they're not going to be a professor, they're going to be an entrepreneur, they're going to take these things they've learned and turn them into products that turn into livelihood for lots of people? How many people are employed today at Cognex?
3,000 people.
3,000 people make their living because you had an idea in 1980.
Pay their bills, send their kids to school.
Exactly. This is a miracle, and it's called America. We'll get to that after a while, but I want to talk about that moment when you hired Bill Silver. We talked about that, and then the first people you hired. What was the transition? How did you go from professor to business person?
Fantastic question. When I faced the life decision. It is a decision in the road.
Sure.
To stay as a professor, which I was at Tufts University. I didn't go into detail about that, but while I was a postdoc at MIT, I was a professor, an assistant professor at
And
Tufts.
saving your money.
Right, saving money. I was considering starting a company. And I needed some help to think through that. And I have no problem seeking help from other people when I have a problem to discuss. And I decided I should go to a psychiatrist for this because it's a life decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this wonderful psychiatrist at the base of Beacon Hill. The setting was perfect. He was an analyst. And you entered through his garden in this beautiful townhouse in Beacon Hill, small but beautiful townhouse. And you sat in his rather dark office and talked. And I found that psychotherapy, is very helpful if you can go in and define the problem. You have to tell the problem. You can't say, I'm unhappy. I mean, you can say it. It's not going to find you an answer.
No.
So my question is, who am I? And I went in with 2 different articles to show him. And I said, here's an article published in a technical journal about machine vision, published by Dr. Bob, written by Dr. Bob. And here is an article in the local newspaper, the Boston Herald, talking about Professor Pickle, who is Dr. Bob. Turns out that about 2 weeks before that, Clausen Pickle Company had a contest to decide who was going to write their commercials or their jokes. And I said, that's perfect for me, you know?
You did.
So I entered the contest.
Okay.
And I entered as Professor Pickle, and I had the complete regalia. I had the hat and the gown, and I had some visual aids. I had various drawings that I hired an artist to do, and I gave a lecture about the history of pickles. For example, Wild Dill Hickok. You've heard
Wild
of him,
Dill Hickok.
right? Albert Speer.
Yes.
And I then, told the audience jokes about I have a dog that likes Arf Sours, right? And I went on, and I came in second in the contest. It turns out they had already knew who was going to win. But nevertheless, there was a great article about me being Professor Pickle. And I went to my psychiatrist and I said, which one am I? Am I Professor Robert Shillman or am I Professor Pickle? And through that experience, I discovered that I am both. And as one of my employees recently said, Dr. Bob is 50% Mel Brooks and 50% Albert Einstein.
Wow, what a great combination.
Right? I got the brains, but I got a sense of humor. And once I realized that, I decided that I had to be both. I couldn't just be a college professor. That's not going to work for my personality. Because I've been a professor and I enjoyed presenting things. I was very good at it. Students loved the way I could present and talk about complex things in simple ways. But I didn't like all the other stuff that goes along with being a professor. There's lots of bureaucracy. So when I realized that, I gave up the professorship that I had, and against my father's advice. And of course, I realized that he wanted to be the professor.
Right.
That didn't mean that I should be the professor. And I'm conscious of that with my own children now. I want them to be certain things, and I'm saying, are you sure? Isn't it you might want to be that? So that's a good lesson in itself. So through that analysis, and I suggest that anyone who is going through a transition period in their life, that they seek therapy. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It means you recognize that this is complex, it's very important, and you should seek some assistance. It doesn't mean you're
it's life-changing.
Life-changing. And I've told my kids this. They poo-poo it so far, but I think they would benefit from psychotherapy too. At any rate, I came to the conclusion that I have to be both. And it turns out that running a company, being a CEO of a company, requires both skills. You have to be smart and analytic, technically, if you're going to run a technical company, and you have to have the ability to lead people, which means you have to have some amount of charisma and personality, sense of humor. And that's when I decided, and I told my parents, I'm giving up professorship, just like Bill Silver gave up his search for a PhD, and start the company.
That must have been an amazing moment that your parents realized that you had now completely blossomed into a different human being.
Different than the person that they perhaps were hoping. Now,
Right.
The same person, but my father, again, grew up during the Depression. Security was very important to him, and being a professor is very secure.
Yep.
You get tenure, you can stay forever, whereas starting a company is very risky. Most people don't realize, and I didn't realize then, probably 90% of people who start a company fail. Most companies fail.
Yep.
Whether it's a pizza shop or a restaurant or a sign-making shop, most companies fail.
And you didn't know about that because you hadn't been to business school. You
Thank
had no
God.
idea about business.
I thank God I didn't know the probability of failure. I didn't know that.
So how did you learn to build a business when you had not been exposed to how to build a business?
Okay, it's step by step. The most important thing is to start, and I tell my kids the same thing. Start doing something. Do something, and then if you hit a roadblock, you'll go around it, you'll change. But doing things is the most important. Action-oriented. Don't overanalyze things. A lot of people want to do everything 100% and then get nothing done. So I started this company with the goal of building a better reading machine for law offices, right? Not how it turned out. Someone mentioned to me that I should apply to the Small Business Incentive Research organization in the government. It's called the SBIR, and I think they still have it. And it's the way of the government helping finance new ventures. So I said, okay, I'll apply for an SBIR grant. The first grant is $50,000. And if you're successful, then $250,000. And I knew that I was going to need more money. My $86,000 was not going to be enough to build a multi-billion.
You're going to burn through that in a minute.
Going to burn through that, right. Yeah. You buy some computers, and you pay rent, and you're through that. So I got the application for the SBIR grant. And I was looking through it, and there was nothing about office automation, which was what I was planning to build a machine for, office automation. But there was something about factory automation. And I said, oh, Okay, I'll twist my proposal about factory automation. I'll talk about robots and the ability to read, but really I'm going to use the money to build an office automation. So I filled that out, but the more that I read about it and the more that I researched, I said, well, this might be a better idea. Might be a better idea after all. Because I was writing a proposal for factory automation and I had to justify it, so I did more research. Now, fortunately, I was rejected. And I say fortunately. Fortunately, I lost the contest. Because if you did that, the government, the government is the government. They're going to make you file reports and this and that. But I got the best out of it that could ever be gotten by changing the focus of the company from office automation to factory automation. Because in the process of applying, I realized that factory automation was a much better market for what I wanted to do than office automation. And that's a key element of success too, realizing when to change the road, change the plan. If this isn't quite right, don't be wedded to a particular thing, right? You're new, you're just starting. If another road looks better, go down that road. You're not going to change, your personality or the technology. You're just going to steer the technology towards something that's better, a better idea. And that made all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. So did you have an inkling then of manufacturing people that would say, yeah, this is something we could use?
Yes. Without ever being in a factory, without ever talking to somebody. I was going to say, how did you get to the factories?
Right.
So another thing that's important to success is get your name out there, PR. So I was very good at that. I don't know why or how, but various newspapers, trade magazines were writing articles about Cognex and its ability to read letters and numbers. So we got our name out there.
With Dataman.
With Dataman, exactly. And I had a photograph of the product, which really was a mock-up of cardboard. It didn't even exist. But, you have to, it's like an architect's drawing. The architect draws the building before it exists. I drew pictures and Photoshop of things that didn't quite exist, but that I was committed to making happen. And the phone started ringing. And we got a call from IBM.
That's a big call.
Big call, because then IBM, there was no such thing as Microsoft. There was no Google. It was IBM. Right. If you named the most prestigious company in the world, it was IBM. This is 1981. They called, and this engineer called and had a particular issue, and he says, I'd like to visit with you. And he came to the company, and he said, we have a need to read these very tiny letters that are written by laser on semiconductor wafers. Most people don't know, but all the chips that are in your phone come from this thing that looks like a mirror, could be 12 inches in diameter. And to keep track of these very valuable mirrors, so to speak, it's semiconductors, there's little codes written on the bottom. And at that time, the only thing that you could do is people had to read the code. It was 21 digits long, letters and numbers, and they would make mistakes in writing it down.
Look at magnifying glass?
They tried magnifying glass, but all day long you're reading these tiny little numbers. Right?
Too many mistakes.
Too many mistakes. And that means that wafer, which was worth tens of thousands of dollars, would go to the wrong process and be screwed up. So they were very intent on getting a machine that could read those numbers. And I said, I think we can read those numbers.
Yeah, you had it.
We had it. So we demonstrated. It's an interesting story about Bill Silver here. And the guy said, we'd like to see, can you demonstrate this? And Bill Silver said, buy him some coffee, get him some coffee, give me 10 minutes. I came back. We could do it. And then the guy came back again. Can you do this? What if it's upside down? Right. And then finally, the third or fourth time, we had to go to lunch, and Bill said, I need an hour. Right. And then he looked at Bill, can you do this? And Bill looked at him, and he said, we can do just about anything. How many units are you talking?
He's the salesman.
That's unbelievable for an engineer
To say that.
to understand that if there's enough units, we can do it. But if you're just talking one unit, we can. So, if this Jewish kid who grew up, his father was a small businessman, and he had it in his genes, a business. So not only was he brilliant in technology, or is still, but he understood business. And that really helped Cognex succeed. So our first sale was to that IBM plant, and it was $30,000. And I remember typing up a little plate for the serial number on it and everything, and delivering it to IBM. And that enabled me to then raise $1 million of venture capital from the Rockefeller family.
Because you sold to IBM.
We sold to IBM.
The best.
What could be better?
Yeah. Yeah. So then you got $1 million from where?
Rockefeller. There's the Rockefeller family. A lot of people don't know this unless you're involved in venture capital, but the Rockefellers were the first venture capitalists in America. They started Eastern Airlines, doesn't exist anymore, but they started an airline. They were the first investor in Apple Computer. Okay, they had a superb ability to recognize talent in the very early stages and to invest in it. And that's what makes America great. They took capital and took risk with the capital to make more money.
And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't.
Right. It turns out 90% of the time in venture capital, they lose. Yep. I'm not talking about Rockefeller. I don't know what their percentage is. But the 10% that you win makes up for all the losses.
It's a huge win.
And this is not the government making decisions. This is individuals making economic decisions that not only help them, but help the world.
How did you feel when Rockefeller, I mean, it's a big name. IBM's a big name. All of a sudden, Cognex has got Rockefeller money.
Right. That was a stamp of approval that led to us being able to raise more money from other companies and ultimately to become a public company on the NASDAQ. And at one point, the company was quite successful. We were doing well, making money. And I thought back about what was important in helping make the company successful. And the National Science Foundation was helpful because it recognized me when I was a graduate student as something special. And it put me through college. It gave me, paid all my expenses through college. And I said, I want to help the National Science Foundation. I want to help them. It's a government, but I want to help them because they know what they're doing. They help me. So this is a strange story. I spent a day or two looking it up. Again, the web wasn't available then, but I figured out who to call. And I spoke to XYZ, some guy. And I introduced myself, and I said, this is Dr. Bob Shillman. And I gave him my brief story, and I want to help the National Science Foundation, and I'm prepared to give you back $1 million to help this country, so you can continue doing what you're doing. And more than the $1 million, I want to help you when you go to Congress. I want to help you get more money because you can use me as an example and my company as an example of how that scholarship paid dividends for the country. Because you paid, $20,000 a year for 3 years, $60,000, and now we have 200 employees who are paying income taxes. I want to help you make the case. I feel that strongly about this country that has given me this opportunity. I want to help it continue, right? Well, this person said, well, I don't know how to help you. We'll go with you. I went 4 levels above, and the answer I got, we have no mechanism of taking your money. Can you imagine this? Somebody's on the phone going to give you $1 million.
What? No, we can't take it.
And we can't, there's no mechanism. And we're not going to take you up on your offer to stand before Congress as an example of why the National Science Foundation should continue to be funded. This is a problem with our government, probably every government. Because you know what? People who go into government generally are not as capable as the people who go into business.
So this is a moment, I think, when you realized that freedom was more important than the security government was promising.
You should not depend on the government for anything, right? If the government is so stupid that it can't take $1 million back from you,
right.
They didn't even say, well, just put it on your tax. They had no idea, and they weren't interested. That's the worst part. They weren't creative. They want to do their job. Don't bother me. This is something that we've never heard of before. It adds to my workday.
They're actually not interested in the product.
Right.
That's their product, is successful business people.
Exactly.
And they weren't
right.
interested in it.
And they were not interested. Right. They were
Amazing.
not interested. That's bureaucrats.
You became a conservative at that moment, didn't you?
Well, the label conservative or liberal or leftist, it doesn't describe a person. You can't describe a person in one adjective, right? And that's a problem in our society today because everyone wants to label everyone else.
So how
as
would you
A or
describe
B.
yourself then?
No, I can't describe it in adjective. I will tell you what I believe in. I believe in the free enterprise system. I believe in meritocracy, that when you hire people, it shouldn't depend, and this is the way it used to be before 3 years ago. It was illegal to make a decision based on anything other than merit.
Right.
You couldn't make a decision based on race, color, sexual orientation. Now you're supposed to make decisions based on that. This makes no sense to me. The decisions be based, who can do the job best? Who can do the job best? And that's who you hire. And I've been asked by my employees, a couple of years ago, we used to hold something called Ask the President. And it was after hours and beer and pizza, and people would show up and you could ask anonymously if you want or raise your hand. And it was Ask the President, and we take questions. And one question is, when are we going to have more diversity? And I looked at my employees, we have people from all over the world, from India, Pakistan, Israel, Bangladesh, America, Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Right, whatever.
You let anybody in.
We'll let anybody in. Right? And I said, well, right now, what my customers are asking for are the finest products at fair prices. And that's what I focus on. And that means we have to hire the smartest people we can find, irrespective of that. So diversity doesn't rate. My customers never asked me for diversity. As soon as they do, I'll figure out how to deliver on that.
You were shocked that one of your employees actually asked that question.
Shocked.
Yeah.
Right? They should have. It's common sense that you want to answer. The way to be successful in business is to focus on customers. That's it. Now, every company has 5. They're called. I call them constituencies, or there's another term for it that the people use. I forget what the term is, but there are 5 different groups of people that you have to worry about. There's customers. There's employees, there's vendors, shareholders, and neighbors, okay? They call them stakeholders. Stakeholders, that's the current term, stakeholders. And I always recognize that there are 5 sets of stakeholders. And which one's more important? Well, it's like saying, what part of the car is more important, Roger? Now, some people will say, well, the engine's the most important. I say, well, try to run without the lug nuts on the wheels.
Or the steering wheel.
Or the steering wheel. Yeah, you need every pieceable part. Now, some parts are more complex and cost more, but when you say which part is most important, there's no, okay, the radio isn't important. You could drive a car without a radio. But most of the other parts, most of the other parts of a car, you can't drive without it. So when people say which is the most important of the 5 constituencies, well, they're all important. But if you don't take care of your customers, then you won't be able to take care of your employees, shareholders, vendors, or neighbors, because it all comes from customers.
So let's go back to that. You start this company. You've got Mr. Silver, first other people you got, and you start making Data Man.
Right.
For IBM.
Right.
And it goes from there. But you've never been to business school. You have no idea actually what you're doing at this point. You're making it up as you go.
But I know if I'm satisfying my customers,
right,
and if I'm pricing the product so that they're willing to pay for it and I can still make money, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So how did we broaden beyond Data Man?
You built a culture.
Culture is key to
Tell me
success.
about that. How did you build this culture?
What does culture mean? Culture means the elements that we all hold in common, that the members of that group hold in common. It's the glue that holds it all together. And at Cognex, our culture is best described by a number of the sayings that we have in the company. One is, work hard, play hard, move fast. In that order, right? My kids, of course, want to play hard before they work hard. So it's work hard, play hard, and move fast. And it takes all three, because if you're not moving fast, someone's going to overtake you. So that's very important. But playing hard is part of our culture. In most companies, that's not part of their culture. It's, I don't know what their culture is. So we believe.
So what did you mean by playing hard?
It's all has to do with the 10 our core values, which I'm going to tell you about now. I have to refer to my notes to get them exactly straight. And I established these values when I started the company. And it's very important, first of all, to understand why people start a company. I can't speak for other people, but I know myself and for the other friends that I have that have started companies, it wasn't to make money. That was not why we started a company. I started a company. I had been an employee. I'd been a student, a co-op student to various companies. And I decided that I can't work for anybody else because their rules, I may not agree with their rules, right? I worked at a company called Sylvania a long time ago as a co-op student. And they noted that I wasn't checking in at 8 o'clock in the morning.
You weren't making the A correctly.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't showing up at 8. I was consistently coming in at 9. And I asked my boss, because he was reviewing me. I said, how's my work? He says, oh, fine. I said, the quality is fine? Yes. And the quantity is fine? I said, yeah. So what the hell do you care if I come in at 8 or 8:30, right? So I soon realized that I had to work for myself. So I created a company where I was in charge of the rules. Not many rules, but I'm in charge of the rules, okay? And it's important to me because I realized that in life, you are going to spend more time at work than anything else. Forget about sleeping, that doesn't matter. But your waking hours, you're going to spend, on average, probably 70 or 80% of your waking hours at work. Not with your wife, not with your kids, not with your dog, not with hobbies. So you better like your work. Key element of deciding what to do with your life is the work you choose, because you're going to spend most of your life doing that. And I couldn't see working for other people because I figured their rules, I'm just not going to go along with their rules, like how to make the letter A. And that is, I think, common for all entrepreneurs. They cannot work under anybody else's rules. All right. So I started this company to be able to go to work with people that I liked, people who are smart, people who are motivated to work, who like work, who aren't just going there to make money, but they like what they're doing. And at the end of the day, the week, the month, we can look back and see what we accomplished. And I wanted to control the physical environment too. It has to be attractive. It has to be comfortable. I want everybody to have the right kind of chairs. I mean, I'm into every detail about making it a pleasant place to be. And it's from the heart. I want you to be happy. And if it's a pleasant place to be, you'll show up more often and you'll stay more at work. So it's a good thing for business too. So the mission of the company, and every company has to have a mission statement, or should have a mission statement. Ours has two parts. The first mission statement is to be the largest and most successful machine vision company in the world. Largest isn't enough, because you can be large, but not make a lot of money, not be very successful. Largest and most successful machine vision company in the world.
And you've succeeded.
We are that. Now, most companies want to be the best at their business, but maybe not all of them. Avis used to say, we try harder, we're second best.
Right.
So the first part is probably common. Anybody who starts a company wants it to be the biggest and most successful. Second part is unique, and most companies don't have this. We want to be an example for other companies to follow with respect to how we treat all of these stakeholders. We want to be an example that can show you that you can treat them all correctly and still make a lot of money. And that's hard because, if you want to treat your customers right.
Mark said it was impossible.
Impossible. Right. If you want to treat your shareholders right, you have to have the highest profits and don't pay your employees enough. I mean, there are these 5 constituencies or stakeholders are pulling on the rope in different directions. So to keep them all happy is a trick. But Cognex has been able to do that.
How?
And it's because of our 10 core values, which I'm going to have to relate to my sheet here and my glasses because it's small print. I established this when we started the company. I said, what are we going to run the company based on? What are the values? And here they are. And we make sure that every employee understands these. We have them posted on the walls in various artistic ways. And it's not just boring that it's, and every employee gets a plastic, a beautiful plaque with little drawings that represent these values. We really talk about these values and we live by the values. A lot of companies have values. They don't live by them. Right? So here are the values. Customer first. Customer satisfaction is our top priority. We listen to our customers and we do what they need whenever and wherever they need it. All right, that's strange. Not only is it top priority, but we'll do whatever they want. Now, Cognex has this philosophy of saying yes to customers, but. There's always got to be a but. If somebody wants to buy a product that is a list price of $3,000, but they only want to pay $2,000, you can't just say yes, right? We say yes, ... but you have to buy 10,000 of them, right? Something like that. Or you have to buy them without the power supply you provide, something. But it's a different philosophy than most companies. You go into a company and ask them for something that isn't on their menu, so to speak, they'll say no. So we have customers asking us for very complex things that the product doesn't yet do, let's say. And let's say we can measure things down to 1,000th of an inch. They want a product that'll measure to 10,000th of an inch. So how do we say yes to that? We say yes, but you'll have to pay for the R&D and you'll have to buy 5,000 units. We'll give you the R&D back if you buy these 5,000 units, right? But otherwise, we don't give it back to you, right? We keep the R&D. So it's a philosophy of saying yes, right? Of making the customer happy. I mean, a lot of restaurants in America is very, very different. You can go into a restaurant and say, I want this, but I don't want the toast. And they'll say yes. Japan?
No.
Absolutely not. You have to point to the menu or to the plastic food that's shown in the lobby of that restaurant, and that's what you're going to get. And I can tell you a story. I went to an Italian restaurant near my office in Tokyo, right?
Yep.
And a nice Italian restaurant, and I didn't see what I wanted. Spaghetti with marinara sauce. Oddly enough, they didn't have that. They had marinara sauce on the pizza. They had marinara, right? But they clearly had the ingredients.
You couldn't make it.
I said, I want spaghetti with marinara sauce. And the local sales guy, it translated into Japanese, and they said, no, because it's not on the menu. So it's very rigid. And some companies in America are very rigid. So we're not. We're very flexible. Customer first. Because you know why customers first? If you don't take care of your customers, you're not going to be able to take care of your employees.
No, there's no money.
There's no way. There's no money. And you can't pay your vendors, and the shareholders aren't going to make a profit or a dividend, and you're not going to be able to pay your real estate taxes for your neighbors or whatever. So the customers are the king. It comes from focusing on the customer. Now, not all public companies are that way. Many public companies, shareholders come first.
Right.
Shareholder return comes first.
Right.
And if you put that first, you're not going to be successful for long.
Milton Friedman used to teach it.
I didn't know that.
Chicago schools. Corporation exists to make the shareholders happy.
Well, I could accept that by saying the only way to make the shareholders happy is to first make the customers happy.
And get the revenue.
And get the revenue.
How else are they going to be happy?
How else? How else are the shareholders going to be
Sure.
happy? The next of the 10 values is excellence. Good is not good enough. We strive for excellence in everything we do. Now, that doesn't mean we always get excellence, right? It just says we're not going to be satisfied with good. We want to be great. That's the goal. Perseverance. We take on the most difficult challenges and we don't stop until we get it right. And this is something that Americans lack, I think. The focus on long term. Nothing good happens quickly, right? Bad things happen quickly. An explosion, your business fails, it burns down. Bad things happen quickly. Good things take time. And it's the recognition that you're going to have to spend time and overcome those obstacles, and that's who wins. Excellence. Oh, enthusiasm. We enjoy what we do. We approach each day challenges with energy and excitement. That doesn't mean you have to be a goody two-shoes every minute smiling, but you got to be enthusiastic about things. If you're a downer, well, this sucks, that spreads. I can't handle people who are always critical. I don't mind creative criticism. We can do it better this way. But enthusiasm is important. Creativity. We delight in being different from the rest and in taking creative approaches to solving problems. Creativity extends at Cognex not only to the products we design, but you look at the other things we do, the way we design the building layout, the colors we use, the annual reports. You'll never see a public company with annual reports like Cognex produces, which are sort of parodies of other magazines. They're fun. And opening up creativity, people can feel great about creating something new. Pride, we derive great satisfaction through our individual accomplishments and those of our company. We put the name Cognex on every computer terminal. We put the name Cognex on, we have Cogware, and that's an interesting question I'll go into now. Yeah, let's talk about that, about pride. Many years ago, my CFO came to me and he said, Dr. Bob, I think we should have Casual Friday, right? He says, we just were on the road and we visited some investment bankers and they have Casual Day, Casual Friday, in which case you're not wearing a suit those days. In business, you wore a suit or something. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And I thought about it. And I dressed casually and I said, yeah, it's much more comfortable. The problem comes about, there are two problems of casual. If it's only one day, then that day is a special day. You're going to leave early or arrive late right away. If you say it's Casual Friday, your attitude is different, right? And I don't want it to be one day. The other thing is, what is casual? Who defines casual? If I let my engineers define casual, it might be bare feet.
It's true.
Right? And an undershirt.
That's true.
Right? So I said, here's the problem. If casual is better on Friday, it should be every day. Why just Friday? And now we have to define casual. And we define casual as Cogware, Cognex wear. And we went online, you find these companies that design clothing, right? And it's casual, whatever you want it to be, collars, no collars, and everyone says Cognex on it. So if you want to be casual, yes, you got to wear Cogwear. So this is defining what casual means, and it could be any day of the week now. And that's what we did. And everybody thought that was a great solution.
Because they still came to work early.
Right. It's not a special day.
No.
Not a special
It's not an off day.
That's right. It's not an off day. So pride, you take pride in your company, and we often talk about that. Integrity. We adhere to the highest ethical standards in our relationships with customers, fellow employees, vendors, neighbors, and shareholders. And very key. We don't tolerate anything but the highest integrity. Got to be honest. Nobody gets cheated. We might charge a lot for our product, but if the customer pays it, no gun to their head. Recognition. Our success is due to the hard work and dedication of our employees and vendors, and we acknowledge their contributions in both tangible and intangible ways. We have a lot of parties at the company to recognize success or recognize individuals. And recognition, it's very interesting how you can do it. Bonus time comes, you can just wire it into people's account, and you know what? It's fungible. They have no idea. They'll look at their check, and yes, there was a little bit more money in it.
Right.
I'll tell you how Cognex used to do it. This was when the company was smaller, 100, 200 employees. We recognized there was going to be a bonus, and I forget what it was. It ranged from maybe $1,000 to $5,000 per person. I arranged for a Brinks truck to bring cash
There you go.
into the building. We held a company meeting. It was a cover story about why we're having the meeting. And we had tables set up and with green lamps and the eye shades. And these Brinks drivers came in with bags of cash and shotguns because it was hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Sure.
And we sat there and counted out money and gave it to each employee.
That made an impression.
They will never forget that.
Yeah.
They'll never forget that.
Yep.
And that's it's so important to try to make a change, a memorable event in people's life. Like, what do you have at the end of it all? You have memories, right? Memories. It doesn't matter how many possessions. Stories and memories. Another thing we did earlier, a different year, I said, I can't make you rich, but I can make you feel rich. We gave each employee a night out on the town, all expenses paid at certain restaurants, and we arranged for a stretch limousine to pick them up with their house, or their spouse, and take them out for a great dinner. Instead of giving somebody $500, which, okay, they're going to spend on, toilet paper, I don't know, right? Whatever, right? This is something they'll remember. So that's recognition.
Of the employees that started, so how many, like Bill, are still there? How many are still there?
Yeah, I don't know the number, but I know our retention is very high. And that's something we're very proud of.
Yeah.
Very proud of how many people stay when it was supposed to be a 1-year job, a 2-year job, or a summer job. Sharing. When Cognex wins, we all win. We share our success with everyone who contributes to it. Fun. We work hard, play hard, and move fast. We celebrate often to recognize our accomplishments and to motivate ourselves to achieve even higher levels in the future. So that's what we live by, and this culture of the company has been instrumental, not because I'm just saying it, but the investors in the company are always curious about the culture of the company and are we maintaining the culture of the company.
I noticed that in your association with the company, you went from being the president and the chief executive officer and in charge of everything to the chief cultural officer.
Thank you. That's not even in the notes. And it's a great question. Recognizing how important culture was to the company, I said, well, we have offices in 45 countries around the world. How can I maintain the culture? Because we hire people who have been to other companies, and they bring with them good habits, bad habits.
Right.
Right? We buy other companies, usually small ones, but still they have their own culture. So how can we keep this culture alive and thriving? And I said, okay, I'll set up a mechanism to do that now because I can't be physically visiting every office anymore and make the effect that I have in Natick in the headquarters. So I appointed myself Chief Culture Officer. I came up with that term, and now it's commonly used. I came up with it. And more importantly, I had each office around the country solicit, asking people to volunteer to be ministers of culture, MOC, a minister of culture. And they can nominate themselves or nominate somebody else, and they go through a process of vetting, right? First of all, they have to be in good standing. They can't be on probation for, not doing their own job, because this is an addition to their job. And being a minister of culture requires work. It means you're in charge of a budget for running parties and events and cogware. It requires work, for which we pay separately. To make it clear, this is a job. Your job is to make it fun for everybody else. You may not be having so much fun.
Because you're working.
Because you're working. It's your job. You're
Yeah.
running the carnival. You're not in the carnival, right? So we now have, I think, 15 ministers of culture, and we take it seriously. We have every year. After the nominations are in, we choose them, and then we hold Cognex Culture Camp at the headquarters, a week of training, talking about showing them what works, what parties that did work, didn't
For the
work.
ministers.
For the ministers, right.
Yeah.
And showing them how to do a spreadsheet for a budget, because now they're in charge of, it could be $50,000, maybe $100,000, because they're big parties, small parties, right? And the way we allocate it, it's probably $2,000 per employee. That's what we allocate to parties and events. And quarterly meetings. We're on Zoom. Did you do the party? What did you do this quarter? Right? It's a real job to keep the culture alive. And we have the facilities. We have a great facilities manager worldwide who makes sure that all the facilities look exactly like we want them to look. They all have a high-tech look about them. The colors are right. So that they can feel like cognoids.
In how many countries?
I think there are 45 offices, probably in 20 countries.
In 20 countries.
Yeah.
Because wherever those countries are doing manufacturing or Amazon-like things, they're obviously going to need your product.
Right. So we sell the product worldwide.
So again, business. Now, you started with just a couple of people, an idea, you get IBM, but now there's a lot of...
So how did the product grow? First of all,
a lot of
that's
years
right.
between now and
a lot
then.
of years, and it wouldn't only be reading letters and numbers. So this is a very important lesson about flexibility and letting the customer lead the way on marketing. Really, right? It's called, I think the current term is the voice of the customer. You want to listen to customers, right? Because they'll tell you what they need if you ask them correctly. And let me get into that for a minute.
When you talk about customers, though, you're talking about Amazon and...
Well, there could be, we have
Target.
Probably 5,000 customers around the world. Okay. Any manufacturing plants around the world, every automotive manufacturing plant, and the suppliers to automotive manufacturing plants. So I think we have 5,000 or 10,000 customers.
Wow.
Right. The largest are the ones you've mentioned, but the others are substantial also.
Sure.
Being close to the customer. I was at a trade show, this was a long time ago, and visiting this trade show where our customers were displaying their products. Now, their products are automation machines that use vision inside. It could be a machine that drills holes in a printed circuit board. It could be a machine that assembles cell phones.
Or makes cookies.
Or a machine that makes cookies. Right. Automation machinery.
Right.
So there was a show in automation machinery, and I'm going there to meet my customers who are the people who make this automation machinery. And they're displaying their products for people who want to make cookies, right? For bakeries or for car companies or for cell phone companies. And I went up to one of the booths, and it was the president was there, and I introduced myself, and I hadn't met him before. And I said, "Oh, Jim, thank you very much. And I can see you're busy, and he says, "Oh, thank you for your product. We really couldn't do what we do without your product." And I said, "Well, how is everything going? Is my company treating you right? How's everything going?" He said, "Yeah, really fine, Bob. I really want to thank you for everything." In a short conversation, I walked away and I thought about it. I said, I asked the wrong question. Right? It's like asking somebody, "How do you feel today?"
Right.
Right? They said, "Fine." Right. I mean, you could be in hospice. You said, "Fine."
Fine.
I said, I asked the wrong question. I went back and I said, thank you for, spending your time with me. What could we do better? He spent 20 minutes with me telling me, I forget what the details were. The packaging wasn't right and the support was shitty. Yeah. You got to ask the right question. You got to be willing to listen, right? And this comes to personal life too. My son Barney, as I mentioned, was having some problems in the 4th or 5th grade of this private school. And it was parents-teachers meeting, and I was meeting with it was just me. My wife was traveling, I think. I was meeting with the teachers, and I sat down. They said, the first thing, oh, how are you doing? Here's coffee, whatever. We want to tell you, Barney is such a sweetheart. We love Barney. I said, excuse me. I'm not here to listen to the good things about Barney, because I think I already know those. Tell me what he's doing wrong, why he's getting C's, and in particular, is he stupid or just not trying? That's what I want to know. I got to know this.
Or is he just rambunctious like I was?
Yeah, that's right. That's what I meant, not trying.
Right.
Is he stupid or just not trying? They were shocked. They've never, and they said it, they were speechless. And I really mean, they sat back in their chair, looked at each other, and one lady said, we've never heard that from a parent. Because today, if the kid isn't doing well, the teacher's fault.
Right.
Why did he get a C? What did you do wrong? What aren't you doing right? Right? Teacher's fault. I came here with a straightforward viewpoint, an analytic viewpoint, as a scientist would. Is he stupid or just not trying? Right? That's because if I can deal with either one, but you deal with it differently. If he's stupid, I got to lower my expectations. If he's not trying, I didn't try either. So what? So what?
You got to remember.
It worked out okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he gets an F in French, it's okay.
It's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So the same thing in business. You got to be willing to ask the right question. And most people are afraid to ask the right question. Are we doing good? Oh, yeah, you're doing great.
So you built this company. It's now worth how much again? This number is amazing
I'll have to check, but I think $14 billion.
14 billion.
Right. And
you're all over the world, 20 countries.
The largest and most successful vision company in the world. Right. In the world.
Coming out of
zero.
From you, right. In your head and Bill.
Right. And when people congratulate me or Bill or whatever, I say, congratulate America.
Yeah.
Okay. This happens. Success happens. Yes, you have to work hard. You have to be smart. A lot of things have to happen. But you need an environment, a set of rules to operate in that let you do that. And that's called the free enterprise system. The freedom to take your money, rent a space, hire people without getting okay from anybody, without anybody's approval. It's your money, right? And pay people and give them stock options, doing what you want to do and not bothering anybody. And that's the free enterprise system. You pay them as much or as little as you want. It's up to you to determine what's right. It's not up to the Department of Labor to tell you what you have to pay people. It shouldn't be up to some bureaucrat to tell you anything, right? It's up to you.
But in the course of the years you've been there at the helm of this thing, of Cognex, that the government is there in a lot of different ways.
More ways every day.
Every day. But you had to deal with it.
Yes. And one reason why I'm no longer chairman and not associated in a senior way with the company is because I didn't want to deal with that anymore. It's too difficult. It's not fun anymore. When large investors tell you, you have to worry about the environment and social justice issues. What? I have to worry about the environment? First of all, I'm not growing trees. I'm not drilling oil on fertile land, right? I'm not dumping petrol pollution. What do you mean I have to worry about the environment? My products allow companies to make things with zero scrap. That's worrying about the environment. Without me worrying about the environment, I got to worry about my business. But now we have shareholders, large shareholders, who insist on this. They insist on social responsibility about how many females or how many minorities are on your board. What is Since when is that important? What's important is you hire the best and most competent people, irrespective of those other things, so you can get the greatest return to your shareholders. That's what it's about. Take care of your customers, return for your shareholders, take care of your employees. But as soon as the government gets involved, it becomes less efficient. And that's where America's headed, unfortunately.
You said something so key about that. It's not fun anymore.
Not fun
The
anymore.
natural thing for people is they want to do something they love, and therefore they're having fun doing it.
Right.
And if it's not fun anymore,
then
you're going to get less of this kind of innovation, less of this kind of job creation, less of this kind of wealth creation for everybody. And you went out, talk about diversity. I remember you went out to Japan to set up the corporation there, and you weren't just in Massachusetts. I mean, you were all over the world.
Well, the first place we expanded to was Japan. And this is another interesting lesson. That at that time, every article I read, everyone I spoke to said, oh, don't bother going to Japan. It's impossible for Americans to do business in Japan.
I remember that, yeah.
And they were basing that on the fact that the Japanese wouldn't buy American cars. Well, all you have to do is go to Tokyo and measure the width of the streets, and you'll see an American car won't fit down the street. Right. It's not that they're anti-American, just American cars were designed for America. They weren't designed to run in Japan, right? Plus, there were quality issues. But the common wisdom was you can't do business in Japan. But, I'm always skeptical. Whenever anybody tells me anything, I'm skeptical. That doesn't mean I'm cynical. There's a difference. A skeptic listens and says, I don't know if it's true or not. I'll think about it, or I'll look into it. A cynic assumes everything's negative. Right. So I'm not a cynic, but I'm a skeptic. So when somebody says you can't do business in Japan, it doesn't sound logical to me. If I have a product that's better, the best in the world at a fair price, why wouldn't they buy it? So I went to Japan and I found they will buy it. Now, they had all sorts of different standards than Americans have, and I didn't object to that. But I'll tell you a great story. Our product at that time was a computer board about this big, and it fit into what's called a pizza box because it looks like a pizza box, and it has foam around it and everything. And then these pizza boxes, and also there's an electrostatic shield, so static electricity won't. So you put it in this plastic shield into the pizza box, you seal the pizza box, and then 100 or 200 pizza boxes are then put in a wooden crate, very carefully made, and shipped off overseas. And I went to my customer, a company called Shillman at the time, that made assembly equipment for semiconductors. And the president greeted me. We had tea together, and he said, there's a problem with your product. I said, well, what do you mean, right? Does it work? Well, and he clapped his hands, and in came a cart, a rolling cart, and there were pizza boxes from Cognex on it, and they were damaged. They had dented in dents and everything. And I looked inside. I said, but was the product okay? He said, yes, of course. But this is unacceptable.
Yes.
Now, to an American,
yeah.
What the fuck? I mean, The purpose of the box is to protect the product. It did that. You throw the friggin' box away, and you're all set, right? And I thought of luggage. You give luggage to American Airlines, and it comes back all battered, but the inside is fine, and you're happy, right? It's not Japan.
No.
Now, I was about to lecture. I was 30 years old. He was 65 years old. To lecture to him the purpose of a box. I was about to open my mouth. And then I recollected the prior week when I had landed, I bought some souvenirs, some very nice chopsticks to give back to people. And when I went into the department store in Tokyo, downtown Tokyo, the girl brought the chopsticks out. She cleaned them, polished them. And then she brought out a box, examined the box, put the chopsticks in, carefully wrapped the box. And I realized that in Japan, the box is a statement about the quality of the product and the company. The box has to be perfect, right? So I didn't argue. I got on the phone that night to my head of manufacturing and I said, here's the problem. He said, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
I said, listen, this is Japan, okay? This is what's required in Japan. And all you have to do, and I don't happen to have it with me, is look at toothpicks in Japan. You open a container of toothpicks. They are all identical, the exact same height, and beautifully turned somehow, a toothpick. And I brought these back and I framed them. And during this intermission, I'm going to get it and show it to you because I use this as an example to my company of the culture that we're selling into, that a toothpick has to be perfect. What do you think a $3,000 vision system has to be?
Dr. Bob and Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. It's the show you want to continue to watch. And we're going to come back with another of the life lessons of Dr. Bob after this.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. If you enjoyed these interviews with some of today's most influential thought leaders, please follow and rate the show on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget, you can also watch each episode on YouTube as well. We'll see you next time.